The unseen depths. Embracing the shadow to become whole. We live in a world that worships light, a relentless celebration of positivity, success, love, and all that society deems good. From infancy, we are conditioned to smile on command, to mute our anger, to swallow our envy, to suffocate our fear beneath layers of acceptable behavior. But beneath this carefully curated facade, a question lingers, haunting in its simplicity. What happens to the parts of ourselves we exile? Where do they go when we lock them away? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who dared to explore the uncharted territories of the human psyche, believed they never truly vanish. Instead, they retreat into the caverns of our unconscious, coalescing into what he named the Shadow Archetype, a hidden reservoir of all that we deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge within ourselves. This shadow is not some distant specter. It is the living, breathing undercurrent of our being, shaped by every stifled impulse, every buried emotion, every whispered desire we've been taught to disown. Yet here's the paradox. The shadow is not merely a dungeon for our so-called evil. It is the keeper of everything we've deemed unacceptable, whether by society's standards or our own. For some, it's the seething rage they've learned to choke back. For others, it's the shame of their own vulnerability, the terror of being seen as weak. For many, it's the raw, untamed hunger for power, the intoxicating pull of lust, or even the forbidden longing for absolute freedom. These exiled fragments are not inherently monstrous, but when left unexamined, they mutate in the dark, gaining strength in secrecy, emerging in ways we least expect. The shadow is born the instant we declare, "This is who I am." Because in drawing that line, we also define what we are not, and everything outside that boundary is cast into the abyss. We exile our contradictions, our messy humanity, all to preserve the illusion of a polished, predictable self. We amputate pieces of our soul to fit into the neat boxes the world has prepared for us. But Jung's revelation was this: the shadow does not disappear. It waits. It surfaces in the venom of our irrational hatreds, the people we despise for embodying the very traits we deny in ourselves. It erupts in our uncontrollable outbursts, in the nightmares that jolt us awake, in the gnawing anxieties that have no clear source. It whispers through our addictions, our compulsions, the masks we strap on each morning just to navigate a world that demands we be anything but real. To face the shadow is not to surrender to darkness. It is to reclaim our wholeness. It is to understand that the traits we fear most, our aggression, our desires, our primal instincts, are also the sources of our deepest strength, the monster we've spent a lifetime running from. It may well be the guardian of our greatest power. Jung's work reveals a truth both terrifying and liberating. Our gold lies buried in the dark. The very aspects of ourselves we've been taught to reject hold the keys to our authenticity, our creativity, our unshakable resilience. But integration is not for the faint of heart. It demands brutal honesty, the courage to stare into the mirror and meet not the sanitized version we present to the world, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. This is the alchemy of the shadow. Not to destroy it, but to dance with it. To recognize that light cannot exist without darkness, that our brilliance is inseparable from our brokenness. The journey is not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming real. And perhaps, in that reckoning, we find something unexpected. The shadow was never the enemy. It was merely the part of us that was waiting, all along, to be seen. So, how do we do this? How do we step into the uncharted territory of our own psyche and illuminate what's been buried? The journey begins with observation, but not the passive, fleeting kind. This is a deliberate, almost sacred act of turning inward. It's about becoming a detective of your own emotions, tracing the faint fingerprints of discomfort back to their source. When irritation flares or judgment arises, pause. Ask yourself, why does this person's arrogance make my hands clench? Why does their vulnerability make me look away? These reactions are breadcrumbs, leading you straight to the hidden chambers of your shadow. Your shadow doesn't announce itself with a shout. It whispers through the cracks in your certainty. It lives in the moral absolutes you cling to, the traits you vehemently deny possessing, the emotions you dismiss as unacceptable. It thrives in the gap between who you believe you are and who you actually are. But here's the key. The shadow speaks in metaphors of emotion. A sudden flare of anger at a stranger's laziness might mirror your own repressed guilt over procrastination. The discomfort you feel around someone's neediness could reflect your shame about your own unmet longings. Even your deepest fears of failure, abandonment, or inadequacy, are often distortions of disowned strengths. What if your fear of being too much is really creativity, begging for expression? What if your weakness is just sensitivity in disguise? This is where most turn back. Facing the shadow feels like standing at the edge of an abyss, terrified the darkness will swallow you whole. But the miracle is this: the abyss is an illusion. What you resist persists. What you befriend transforms. When you approach your shadow with curiosity, why does this keep showing up? What is it trying to show me? You initiate an alchemical process. Suppression drains your energy. Integration returns it tenfold. And when you dare to do this, when you stop warring with yourself, an unexpected shift occurs. The weight you've carried lightens, relationships deepen, because you're no longer projecting your hidden self onto others. Creativity sparks where there was once stagnation. This isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. Jung's paradox holds the truth. You don't transcend the darkness by fleeing from it, but by walking through it with awareness. Your shadow isn't a monster to slay. It's a guide holding the map to your unlived life. It's the teacher who shows you where you're fragmented. The mirror that reflects your blind spots. The keeper of the gifts you've exiled. So I ask you now, not as a theoretical exercise, but as an invitation to revolution. What if the trait you despise in your boss is the very one you've been too timid to claim? What if the emotion you numb with distraction is the key to your deepest wisdom? What if your darkest fear, once faced, becomes the foundation of your courage? This is the threshold. The moment you stop asking, how do I fix myself? And start wondering, how do I meet myself? True power isn't the absence of shadow. It's the ability to hold both light and dark without collapsing into either. Are you ready to stop pretending? To stop abandoning yourself? Because integration isn't a one-time event. It's a lifetime of brave, messy, glorious unfolding. The door to your shadow is already open. The only question left is, will you step through?